Continuing where we left off, in this video we're going to bake our procedural tree down into 4 PBR maps. Before we get started, I've made a few minor adjustments. Firstly, adding these dark areas to the mud with a noise and colour ramp node. Then secondly, from the test bakes, the damage on the back of the ammo barrel was going out rather than in and way too strong, so I've inverted that and reduced it to 0.2. Right, so with that out of the way, to get started, we're just going to go back into solid view, and we're going to split the window on the right and have an image editor at the top, and we're going to bake our normal map out first. So we're just going to duplicate the model, and we're just going to bake from one low poly onto the other low poly. And it's just the normal way you'd set up to bake a map. So we're going to add in a normal image in the top, change the resolution to 4K, just select both times by 4 and click OK. Then in the shader editor underneath, I'm going to add in an image texture and select the map we've just made above. And we're going to change this to non-color. It's very important for a normal map. Next, we're going to go up to the render properties and down to the bake settings. It's already on normal map, selected to active, and we just want to disable the cage as we're no longer using one. Select the first turret, control click on the second turret, and click bake. Okay, when that's baked, you'll see it's captured all of the detail from all the bump. There are errors all over the thing, but they're all in areas that you can't see anyway. The thing with this map is don't forget to save it out. I've already done one earlier, and we can now plug that in. And if we add in a normal map, we can then see what it looks like on the actual model. Just darken this colour a little bit. And if we change over to rendered view, we can see that it's baked in, especially on the base, all that crumbling material. So we can see it's definitely worked. Okay, that's all looking good. So we're just going to re-enable the other turret. And we're going to do the diffuse map next. Now, to do this, we need to disable anything that's got a metallic value. So the bottom two materials are fine, but the one above, we need to remove that and set it to 0. And on the one above, we need to set that to 0 as well. The reason for that is that anything that's metal is naturally reflective, and it will change the colour of everything underneath. So just going to bring in our other material here, add a new map for diffuse. It's already set to 4K, which is what we want, and click OK. And I'm just going to duplicate the image texture in the shader editor, close that out, and then change it over to the diffuse. Again, we want this to be set to diffuse in the bake settings on the right as well. And if we check the influence, the direct and indirect lighting are not affecting it. Select both the models and click bake. And you can see that's rendered out all the colour information from our procedural into our texture map. We can then plug that in and preview it on the model. And we hide the other turret, we'll see it properly because they're overlapping. And we can see we've got all that colour information. It's working well. Over in Photoshop, we can add in our ambient occlusion map that we made earlier. So I'm just going to open that up, Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste it over the top, and change the blend mode to multiply. And that's all we need to do with that. So we can then save that over the diffuse, just change it to PNG. Yes, we want to overwrite, and OK. Back in Blender, we need to reload the texture just to see the effects of that. So if we just cut this line, close out the material and reopen it. There may be quicker ways to refresh materials, but I'm not sure of them at the moment. And that's added that in properly. Next, we want to make our roughness map. So I'm going to close the diffuse and add in a new image texture for roughness. Again, it's already at 4K. And again, we're just going to duplicate one of these image textures, close it out, and change it to the roughness that we've just made. We want to set this to non-color. Re-enable the other turret material so we can select it. Change it to roughness in the bake settings. And then when that's baked out, we can save that and plug that back in. If we hide the other model, you can see that we've got different roughness values over the surface. You can see the highlights catching on the mud there. The base is looking a little off. That might be the metallic, which we're going to do next. Okay, so just going to enable the other turret model. Now for this one, you can't bake the metallic as it is, as far as I'm aware. And a trick that I learned from, I think it was Ryan King, is you have to change it to, you have to bake it into an emission node. So that's the mask, that edgeware mask at the top there. That's the one that's got all the detail we need in it. So if we plug that into an emissive shader, and as before, we're going to change this and add in a new material for emission. Click OK. In the shader editor, duplicate an image texture node and change that over to the one we've just made. Change it to non-color because it's just black and white data. And then on the bake settings, we just want to change it to emit, which is for the emission. Select both models and bake. Now this gives us the parts that we used with the mask, but we also want to combine it with the masks that we've already made because some parts of those were already metal. So over in Photoshop, we're going to open up masks 1 and 2, and these were all the parts of the model which were already metal. And we're going to combine these together. So just going to copy and paste these over the emissive. We can see them all in there, and then we just need to change the blend modes. The first one to darken, and if we change the second one to difference, we get all three materials all overlaying correctly. And it's taking that mask information away from the masks that we already had. So we can then save that out as the metal map. We're no longer using the emissive, so we can delete that out and put it back in as the metal. And if we plug that in, we can preview it on the model. Just disable the previous model. And we can see now the gold front of that thing is showing in metal, the base is showing in metal. Still not quite right on the reflections. Let me just check what I've got set up here. Oh, it's just on the roughness. It's defaulted back to RGB for some reason, so just set that to non-color, and that fixes that issue. And the last thing is the band on the drum was also part of the mask. And rather than try and bake that out, it's simpler to just go into Photoshop. And if we add in the normal map and the UV map, we can select the parts of the model where that band is, and then just paint it black on the metal map. So I'm just going to select this, check it lines up with the UV, and just quickly select all these other parts. It's basically this whole strip all the way down to the bottom of the map. Add a new layer over the background and just paint it black just within that area. And then if we save that as the new metal map, we can then reload that into Blender as we did before. And see it changes that band so it's no longer metallic. And I might use that to add in some stickers or decals, but we can do that in Photoshop if we want to. So this is the models side by side, the procedural one on the left and the PBR on the right. The procedural one is around 500 megabytes and the PBR is about 80. So it's quite a noticeable difference. And apart from a tiny bit of lighting differences here and there, they pretty much look the same.